Good morning, friends. Today, I would like to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga or Ashtanga yoga. So we'll talk about what is yoga, what are the different constituent components of yoga, and how does it relate to the teachings of Bhagavad-Gita in terms of incorporation of yoga in our day-to-day life. So the word yoga means yog or union. And it essentially means a union of the body with the spirit, because yoga deems the body as a temple or shrine in which the soul is temporarily residing. So you want to keep the body in shape in order for the inner consciousness to grow and reach its ultimate abode, which is the Brahman or the infinite, absolute, cosmic, collective superconsciousness. So let's jump into it right now. As you can see, there's an 8-fold path of yoga, starting with Yama and ending in Samadhi. The 8 different components of yoga are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Those are the sequence in which one should try to go through the various limbs in order to attain the final destination of Samadhi or merging into the superconsciousness. So let's start with the first one, which is Yama or Yam. Yam essentially implies improvement of the moral conduct. So it has its own 5 subcomponents, things like Satya or the truth, Asteya or non-stealthiness, Ahimsa or non-violence towards both individuals and creatures, Brahmacharya or following the path of cleanliness and pureness and discipline, which in some cases can mean leading a celibate life. And the last one, which is aparigraha, which is non-covetousness. You are transparent in your actions. So you are truthful, non-violent, transparent person who's leading a strict, disciplined life and who does not steal from others. So these are all qualities which we want to be inculcating, and we treat others the same as we treat ourselves. Now, the second limb is Niyama. Niyama means your own spiritual conduct, your own bodily conduct. So this involves things like shaucham or cleanliness, because they say cleanliness is next to godliness. So that's why shaucham, followed by santosham. Santosham means a state of contentment, because they say santosham paramam sukham. Santosh or contentment is the biggest happiness that is there. Then Niyam also includes things like swadhyaya or study of the scriptures, tapas or strict austerities or penances that are practiced, and Ishwar Paridehana, which means surrender, selfless surrender to God in order to merge into the Brahman. So those are the various components of Yam and Niyam. The third one is Asana. Asana represents the various bodily postures, because this essentially means that you are trying to keep the body flexible, you're trying to keep the internal organs healthy and functioning in optimal way, because where there is a sound body and mind, there will be the practice of the further higher steps of yoga. So things like Siddhasana, Padmasana, your Sukhasana, Sirsasana, all those asanas or body postures which are helping to align the spine and the brain with your consciousness. So it's basically to keep the body portion healthy, because body is a shrine, a temple where the soul is residing. Next, or the fourth step is Pranayama. Pranayama represents your breathing exercises. So these can be a lot of different exercises, but in general, 3 components are what essentially every pranayama is composed of. They call it the Purak, which is the inner breathing air, then Kumbhat or the holding of the air, and the last one is Rechak or exhalation of the air. And there's different combinations of this. You can do anulom vilom, where you close one eye, nostril, and breathe through in, or purak through the other one, kumbhak it in the belly, and then let go through rechak. You can do bhastrika, you can do brahmari. All these different ones are combinations of breathing exercises. The whole point is that prana vayu, it is one of the vayus or pranas, the prana vayu, is basically helping to be a pacemaker or a supercharger for this body. So you have this 5 element panch bhautik sharir, panch tattva sharir, and that has the prana vayu, or the electrifying live wire that keeps this 5 element body going, and that's why you are trying to balance it out. And of course there are different kinds of pranas. We had talked in the other lecture. There is things like prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. Those 5 basically meaning incoming air or incoming food, the exiting food, the assimilation through samana, the distribution through vyana, and the upliftment, enlightenment through udana, when it is trying to leave through the ajna and sahasrara. But that is a kind of pranayam. But pranayam itself means your breathing exercises, if you will, and asana means the body bending exercises. Next is pratyahara. Now, the first 4 are more to deal with the practices, the daily practices that one should be doing in terms of how to manage the body and the conduct. And the other 4, the last 4, are more in the mold of meditation. So how to build a better concentration, how to get to awakening and enlightenment. Starts with pratyahara. Pratyahara is abdication or giving up of sensual pleasures or indulgence or luxuries that are creating a temporary, becoming almost perpetual addiction of distraction. So the temporary, which is becoming perpetual by constant repetition, is what Pratyahara is trying to avoid. So it says things like obsessions, things like smoking, gambling, alcohol, things like excessive indulgence in sexual practices. Those things are distractions because they're involving various senses, and those senses are getting totally bound to the objects of sensual gratification, which is what kicks in a cycle of perpetual release of dopamine, pleasure-seeking tendencies, which are short-lived, so you have to come back to it. So all your life is wasted in just accruing or experiencing these temporary pleasures without having the ability to feel the inner joy, which will come through practice of meditation. So that's why Pratyahara says first you have to think of yourself as the Sukshma Sharir, or the subtle body living in this gross body. So step away from the body and try to evaluate your actions. Any actions that are dealing with personal sense gratification, sensual gratification, and in which you have to indulge compulsively should be avoided. And that is what will help us in terms of going to the next stage, which is Dharana. Dharana means once you have broken off your connection with the senses, see how the sequence is working. You're working on the body, then you worked on the senses, now you're working on the mind. The Dharana means you are trying to converge from multiple thoughts to few thoughts, and those are few healthy, directive thoughts which will help you go towards a higher goal. So Dharana could mean sitting still and chanting the mantra Om. Dharana could mean visualizing your Ishtadeva, or the God you most firmly believe in. It could be Allah, Jesus, Moses. It could be Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, whoever, Shiva, whoever you believe in strongly and kind of connect to, Hanuman. That's the person that you should be visualizing. Or in certain senses, even working on your chakras. So there will be various mantras, Om, Lam, Vam, Rang, Ram, and you are kind of working on the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anhata, Vishuddha, Ajna, Sahasrara. So you're working on various chakras. So visualizing the image of your God or the image of the chakra, or sounding the mantra Om or any other mantra that you connect with. Basically, it's trying to converge the thought so that you don't have these distracting multiple thoughts about day-to-day activities, your stresses about work, home, family, relationships. You're not entangling in that, and again, not getting distracted. First, you cut the distractions from the senses. Now you're cutting the distractions of the mind, just going everywhere around. Now, after the dharana has kind of converged into Om or one image of the God you're looking, the next step is Dhyana. Now, Dhyana is what Ramana Maharshi constantly talks about, the field of neutrality. Meditation is the absence of any thoughts. When you have converged from multiple thoughts into singular thoughts of Om, or the image that you see your God in, the manifest group or the manifest form, then the next step is Dhyana, which is the field of neutrality. No thoughts, no images, no sound. The visualization and hearing, the visualization of nothing and the sound of the silence, if you will. So it's very difficult to describe in words, but Dhyana is a field of neutrality and constantly submerged in that field of neutrality. That will lead to Samadhi, or the ultimate 8th limb of yoga, where a person is constantly dwelling in this blissful state and enjoying the infinite absolute as it is, seeing themselves a part of it. So my friends, those are the 8 different limbs of yoga. In terms of Bhagavad-Gita, it does talk about different shlokas everywhere about these different limbs. Yama and Niyama is very often covered by the 16th chapter, where he talks about the Devi and the Asuri manifestations, or the angelic and the demonic manifestations. Like he talks about Abhyam Sattva Sanshuddhir Gyan Yoga Sthita Danam Damashya Swadhyaya Staparjanam Ahimsa Satyam Krodha Tyaga Shantur Pashandam Daya Bhuteshu Lalutvam Mardam Hir Chapalam Teja Shamadhriti Saucham Droho Nati Manita. Saucham is here, Satyam Pratishtham comes here in Yam. So all these virtues he talks about, and then he talks about what a person should not have. So all those things are constituting Yam and Niyam. Asana is obviously the different bodily postures. Pranayama, a very small technique I would like to mention, that is mentioned in Dhyana Yoga chapter. And basically Krishna says that you have to try to control the inhaling and the exhaling air at the level of in between your brows. That is the level of the Agya chakra or the Ajna. So that is like he says, Sparshan Kritva Bahir Bhayans Chakshus Chavantare Bhruva Pranapano Samakritya Nasa Bantir Charino. So you have to hold the incoming and exhaling air here, and then you are picturizing. So you are going into pranayama, but basically you are going into dharana, because you are visualizing something or thinking of the word Om. Pratyahara, he talks all the times about how to break the sensual gratification portions, not to be involved in the senses. Indriya sartha rag dvaisho vavasthito tarun vashma gacchaito hasya paripanthino. The nature of indriyani is to combine with the objects of sensual gratification. Once you sever those two, then your mind is set free. And dharana again is focusing your mind on one sharp thing, because if you're kind of distracted, then it's not able to concentrate and go up and levitate to the level of dhyana and samadhi. Dhyana is the field of neutrality, we talked. Samadhi is the ultimate state of bliss. So this is essentially Ashtanga yoga, and what are its components, and how briefly Bhagavad-Gita mentions some of those verses. Hope you like this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it below. Thank you.